A fight to protect its domestic producers. Top Indonesian and Malaysian ministers will be in Brussels this week to voice their concerns over the European Union's new anti-deforestation law. Officials are expected to discuss the regulation and its implications on the palm oil industry in the two countries. It will also focus on ways to minimize the impact of the law, particularly on small farmers. Both countries earlier called the rules discriminatory against their palm oil exports. This development follows the approval of the law by the European Parliament last month, which is set to ban the imports of coffee, beef, soy and other commodities into the European Union. That's unless companies can provide, quote, verifiable information that these products were not grown on land that suffered deforestation after 2020. The legislation is scheduled to come into force in less than 2 years. This has raised the alarm in the world's top two palm oil producers, which account for about 85% of global palm oil exports. The EU is their third largest market. And CNA's Saiful Ismail joins us live from Jakarta. Saiful, what would be the impact of this EU deforestation law on Indonesia?
The EU deforestation law is expected to have a significant impact on millions of smallholders, farmers in Indonesia. Now, these farmers account for about 41% of Indonesia's palm oil plantation area. The EU uses its own benchmarking system to classify countries as low risk, standard risk or high risk. For example, products from low-risk countries will be subject to a simplified due diligence procedure. Now, the proportion of checks is performed on farmers according to the country's risk level: 9% for high-risk countries, 3% for standard risk, and 1% for low-risk countries. Now, Indonesia sees this as a discriminative policy, as the law will be applied differently to countries. Indonesia, the world's largest palm oil producer, will automatically be perceived to be a high-risk country, thereby subject to tight, complex due diligence processes before entering the EU market. Now, under the law, farmers will need to go through a lot of data gathering, such as tracing where the products are farmed. Observers say these difficulties must be transformed into requests for collaboration to be able to comply with the regulation. Now, this means financial and technological resources and small producers must be supported so that they can adapt and redesign their logistics for traceability and so on.
All right, Saiful, the whole point of this EU law presumably is to stop deforestation, and palm oil production is considered a big driver of deforestation in Indonesia. So Indonesian authorities would care about it. What have they done to show they are serious about addressing the problem of deforestation?
Well, we issued the government, the Indonesian government said Indonesia's deforestation had sharply declined by 75% between 2019 and 2020. Now, the government introduced policies and regulations to protect forests and promote sustainable land use. For example, the moratorium on new permits for logging and palm oil plantations in primary forests and peatlands has been extended several times since 2011. The government has also launched programs such as the Social Forestry Program, which allows communities to manage and protect forests. However, the government had said that it never agreed to a complete stop to deforestation and that a zero deforestation target is against its development plans. Officials say more land is needed for the country to build infrastructure, food security, and industry development. Civil society organizations also took issue with how the EU defines deforestation. Now, these groups said the term deforestation covered by the regulation is limited to conversion of forest into agricultural land and does not take into account other types of deforestation, such as cutting down forests to make way for mining activities such as for nickel. Observers said the EU's consistency is being tested in this deforestation regulation, and they said the EU wants to import nickel ore, a raw material from Indonesia, when it also causes deforestation.
All right, thanks for that. Saiful Ismail speaking live to us there from Jakarta.